the week between Christmas and New Year's last week, and we are now moving forward with some collaborative work sessions so that we can identify what the concerns may be at the federal level using the federal lens for these agreements, and then certainly at the state level with DOJ. Specifications are being developed. We have to go through rulemaking. Went through a robust public comment period, which has been extended through a close of business tomorrow. So this Thursday, the Transportation Commission will approve the rules, and that will be what grants the agency the authority to implement these projects and programs. We do have infrastructure that's being developed. 2 positions have been designated solely to support the program. Unfortunately, both recruitments resulted in failed recruitments. They're back out on the street again. I've gone through robust process mapping and quite a bit of training that's going to have to take place. Some outreach will be needed, both internally and externally, and then training. Specific to project information, those items that I've highlighted in yellow is new information that we will be working with the regions and the TPMs and RECPs to create and develop. Construction start date, end date will be helpful for the apprenticeship programs and for labor and contractors to identify the duration of when workers are needed. The trades and labor hours will identify the types of workers that will be needed on a project. It would be equipment operators, carpenters, laborers, cement masons, electricians, iron workers. So that'll help the apprenticeship programs in identifying areas of training that's needed, as well as the labor unions in identifying what workers are needed when, identifying the goals and targets for each project, as well as apprenticeship goals. Today, for apprenticeship, we have a general goal of 20% by project. We're expanding that to also include apprenticeship goals by trade, because one of the goals of this program is to build a pipeline of workers. We recognize there is a shortage of transportation construction workers in our industry. We're hearing that from AGC, and we're seeing that play out through our construction projects. I won't go into the details of this slide, but this is a process mapping piece. The green is really the area where there is some work on the TPMs and RECPs, but the bulk of the work will be after the project goes to PS&E, from mandatory pre-bids and advertisement all the way through the pre-con meetings and then throughout construction. And we'll roll this out as we continue to ramp up for the training piece. We will follow up with going back to the project list on the right. We will be reaching out to the area managers, the TPMs, RECPs, and the REs as the other projects start to get closer to the PS&E piece. On the specifications, what we'll do is the specifications will be added by the project controls office. Similar to what we do with like Office of Civil Rights, there'll be kind of a set of specs that will get incorporated. Other special provisions, the PCO will be working with the region spec writers to get those incorporated. So mobility, I just got a few slides on mobility. Early on, we had some challenges with roundabouts. I think we've made some good headway to address that bottleneck or choke point. There's been some great work between ODOT, Oregon State University, and the Oregon Trucking Association as it relates to roundabouts and congestion and the impacts roundabouts have on freight. It might be worthy to have traffic roadway come to a future PDQ and give some insight to the progress that's being made and some of the observations. One piece out there is metering of roundabouts, similar to ramp metering that we have on our highways for our on-ramps, looking at metering roundabouts to manage flow. Another piece that I know has been challenging is the travel lane widths, the 11-foot lanes. and some of the pushback we're getting from the Mobility Advisory Committee meetings, and then having those issues escalated. We know that there's been a tremendous infusion of funding, and there's been a policy shift within transportation, looking at better embedding climate and equity, which results in more multimodal features of enhanced bicycle, pedestrian, and transit facilities. We've had some work sessions. Mike Kimlinger is in the process of scheduling a third work session to look at how we can better achieve balance. I know that a couple of the projects that have gone before the MAC have been hung up. The latest is the Banks project in Region 2, and I know that Mike Kimlinger is working with Region 2 in trying to resolve that. We did recently meet, we being Mac, Lynn, myself, and Karen Criswell, met with the Oregon Bike Ped Advisory Chair and the two members, the bicycle and pedestrian representatives on the MAC, and we talked about some opportunities that lie ahead. In the short term, we want to clarify what will be covered in the Mobility Advisory Committee meetings versus stakeholder forum. And we really shouldn't be talking about 11-foot lanes because that's not something that is considered a reduction. So providing some clarity there. Another piece is trying to advance projects sooner in the design process as they come to the MAC meetings. We know that what we're seeing or experiencing is these projects are coming in and there's some desperation trying to get the okay. We have these work sessions and we're running out of time. And we know that a lot of the multimodal features are identified, say, at DAP or preliminary plans, and maybe that's the right time to try to bring these projects forward to get that mobility lens applied. And then long term, how do we develop a vision for a multimodal approach when projects come before the MAC? And part of it is embedding equity to the committee. So we do have a bicycle and pedestrian representative on the MAC. We don't have one on the SIMPAC. And we're working with the Office of Social Equity to see how we can meet statute. There's a new law that requires equity on committees, but also ensuring that all voices are heard and given equal footing in these meetings. So more to come. This will be both a short-term 6-month effort, but a longer-term vision to strengthen this committee to really make it work for ODOT. I want to briefly touch on cost estimating. You know, with inflation impacting our projects, supply chain issues, we're seeing one less bidder on our projects. There's quite a bit of attention and focus. And then if you've been reading the papers, the Interstate Bridge Replacement Project cost estimates have ballooned or gone up by another $1 billion or $2 billion. So lots of focus. We went before the Continuous Improvement Advisory Committee back in February of last year, and then again, I think in September, giving them updates. We've been asked to come back again next month to talk about cost estimating. This is an older slide, and I've asked the Project Controls Office cost estimating team to give me some updates on the impact inflation is having. It's not just having an impact on our cost estimating. We're chasing that. Talking with contractors, they are struggling to put bids together, and then talking with our consultant partners, they're struggling as well. And so what steps can we take as an agency, as an industry, to help get ahead of what's impacting our ability to do good cost estimating? And so more conversations to be had with the CIAC. I know that Director Strickler has also expressed a strong interest in strengthening our abilities to do better cost estimating. I like this slide. This slide shows the progress that we have made over the last several years in terms of cost estimating, establishing standards of practice, creating new programs that I know some of the TPMs and RECPs have used, whether it be VE, CRAs, or constructability reviews. And so continue to build that competency within ODOT and our partners in terms of making improvements. And I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on the agency moving forward. Next slide. So there are a lot of challenges facing project delivery and ODOT, and I recently did a presentation with HR and put this slide together, thinking about kind of what we've worked on in the past, what's underway now, and then what's on the horizon. And certainly I mentioned inflation. That's taking a cut into not just our STIP portfolio. We are making a modification to our POPs position request. I think we had another 22 positions that were going before the legislature to ask. I think that's been cut in half. Budget and resourcing is certainly having an impact. You know, the operational side of ODOT and project charging, looking at increasing project charging is going to have an impact on our design budgets and construction budgets. Workforce and competency, not just facing ODOT, but our industry partners as well. ADA, big ramp up on the ADA program. Application of climate and equity. I think with the new governor, we're going to see more legislative bills and policies coming down related to climate and equity, and we know that transportation has a big impact in those areas. Modern work environment. What does the future hold for us working remotely? I know City of Portland has a requirement right now of employees coming in the office 2 to 3 days a week. Federal highways, I think they talked about having to come in 2 days a week. It'll be interesting to see where DAS and the governor land on this. I think we've been able to make it work successfully based on the tools and technology that we have in place, and this meeting's a great example of that. Alternative delivery, expanding our tools, looking at IDIQ and other delivery methods, and strengthening what we have. Strengthening meaning training, getting more of our employees trained through design, build, and CMGC. Looking at increasing our construction outsourcing. Just talked about freight mobility. We know with accountability and transparency and some of these new programs like climate and equity, how do we capture data? And we know that there's a need for a transportation project management system. We have a lot of different one-off systems, and it has all that come together. And so nice work of Oscar and his team looking at an interim system. And I know that we've had a lot of collaboration with the regions on this. Community workforce agreements, a lot on that. It's a pilot effort. We're going to see if it's right for Oregon, what works, what doesn't work, and then what the future holds for this program after the pilots are completed. And then DBE goals. We know we have higher goals, and how do we look at means to meet those higher goals from the 17+% to the 23.43%. I know this has also created some angst with our construction contracting partners as well. And to roll all this up, I've been working with my team to put together a project delivery work plan. So we had a work plan back in 2019, one in 2021, and working with my team to put a work plan together for the 2023-2024 timeframe. And I think going back to the opportunities and challenges work slide, that'll give us some insight as to what to cover. So we'll cover kind of what work has been completed to date, what's underway, what may be paused because of budget shortfalls or a lack of resources. And my plan is to vet this work plan with all of you. At the end of the day, the mission and goal of statewide project delivery is to add value and strengthen project delivery and elevate transportation project management as a discipline. So we're going to come up with a framework, do some vetting, and then put this together in a way that we can get the support of the agency moving forward. So that concludes my presentation. I can certainly make the PowerPoint available via PDF, and I'll get that to Kim Sharshaft, and she'll get that out to the team. Any questions?
No questions or comments for David this morning? Thank you, David. I appreciate the update and your time. And I know that you're always open to questions or comments anytime, doesn't have to just be here at the meeting. So thanks very much. With that, let's move on to our next item on the agenda, and I will, oh, Thank you. Christy's already right on it. Thanks, Christy. Welcome. Christy Gladhill, our project delivery QA/QC program manager.
Thank you, Kim, so much for having me here today to give you updates about project delivery quality program. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ops Notice PD25. I'm going to talk a lot about the consultant quality plans, what we've been doing in the reviews, and also talk about the fact that the consultant quality plan guidance is up for its annual review and that we're forming an RE narrative focus group. I want to always have us remember that the 3 pillars for the project delivery quality program are to develop a quality culture with statewide consistency and continuous improvement. And today we're going to cover things that impact each of these. Towards our quality culture, Ops Notice PD25 is now in place for the quality program. And you're probably wondering what's changed. You know, we've established that quality is policy and required, but in other words, we're continuing to do quality management, the planning, the checks, the reviews, as you have been doing. So we've already been putting things in place. This is just formally establishing the policy. The consultant quality plan review. Let's start with the scope of the ODOT consultant quality plan guidance. It went into effect in February of 2022. It covers design or technical services, or where ODOT's going to get a final document that needs professional or engineering oversight when there's review and acceptance. The approved consultant quality plan needs to be in place before any work order contracts are executed. And the consultant quality plan covers their sub-consultants as well. The consultant quality plan is approved for the duration of the price agreement. Project-specific consultant quality plans can be considered as needed. Contact me to discuss why it's felt to be needed. If there are things we need to learn that we want to put in overall, we want to learn that. But in general, we are expecting that the price agreement consultant quality plan should work for most of the work order contracts under a price agreement. And ODOT reserves the right to require consultant quality plan updates throughout the price agreement term or applicable contract term. Let's talk a bit about the expectations that we've put into the consultant quality plan guidance. The consultants are required to meet or exceed ODOT discipline quality plan expectations for deliverables. ODOT review does not replace or reduce the QC or QA responsibilities of the consultant. We will review deliverables and identify issues that need correction. We will not go into detail of how to make corrections. Remember, that's a liability issue. We don't want to take the liability back onto ODOT. We want them to make the necessary changes and resubmit for further review. We're already paying these folks plenty of money to do this work for us and to do it well. We've also left a wide open door that ODOT may at any time perform a QA review of the consultant's QC/QA documentation to verify that the appropriate procedures have been followed while developing the deliverable. I know I'm covering a lot of material today and I'm kind of going to be tight on schedule, but just thought I'd pause if there are any questions on what I've presented so far. Okay, not seeing any. Kim, maybe if you can alert me if comments or questions start appearing in the chat, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, you know, I had a question early on, very good question from folks. What do we expect from reviewing these consultant quality plans? We want to ensure that consultants have the capability and qualifications to meet quality requirements and provide documentation of quality efforts. If there are problems with quality on consultant deliverables, which we all really hope won't happen, we hope they give us good quality stuff, we have a basis for expectations that they follow their approved quality plan. The review effort, we had 33 firms that were put onto the full service price agreement, and we don't want any quality plan approval to hold up being able to issue any work order contracts. There was one day that I approved one in the morning, and I heard later that day that OPO was working with them to find that particular firm to finalize a contract. So that's the way we'd like things to work. We don't want to be holding things up. There are 21 that have been approved to date of the 33. One of those we are still reviewing. We received it in late December. All the rest are back in the consultant's court to get back to us, responding to our comments. The process has been that we review whether it meets the ODOT Consultant Quality Plan guidance. We have at least 2 full reviewers, myself, plus we've been getting wonderful support from PCO. Karen Scott, excuse me, and Nathan Powell have been helping with those reviews. And discipline-specific material we send to discipline reviewers because I can't comment on whether a checklist is really appropriate for what Bridge wants to see, for example. If it's not approved, we provide them a comment log with what we want to see addressed. So this graph is kind of a favorite style for me. If you look, when everything's done, it'll all be up in all the lines will be up to the upper right-hand corner. It's the percent completion. So the gray was when we received drafts from the consultants. Notice that in late August, we got a couple dozen plans, all came in within the span of a week. And then I went on vacation for a week. So the yellow is when we got that first set of comments back to the consultants. And the green is when it's fully approved. So you can see that basically we're waiting now for the consultants to get things back to us. When they do a resubmittal, I try to turn that around in a couple of working days. We have reviewed more than 1,500 pages, made over 900 comments, handled 84 submittals. They're averaging about 2 to approval. The average length of the main section is 20 pages. We also had something come up in December that there was a NOAs discipline-specific price agreement that Region 3 wanted in place by the end of the December. I met with those folks, with that consulting firm in advance, gave them some pointers because after about the first 20 consultant quality plans, I had things that, you know, these are specifically what I look for, folks. Please do this. And we turned around their approval in 25 hours from their first submittal to us. So again, we really try to respect the need to get projects going and support that. So what can you expect about these consultant quality plans? Well, first of all, I want to make sure you're all aware that the consultant quality plans are accessible on the internal quality website. They are sorted by price agreement. You can filter by consultant. You can see, you can pull up the plan and look at it. Now the format, we have required that they be PDFs with bookmarks so that you can navigate easily to any part of the plan. Note that the browser version of looking at the consultant quality plans doesn't give you the bookmarks. I highly recommend that if you want to look through the whole plan, download it, and then you've got those bookmarks that allow you to navigate easily through the plan. You can also find the content we asked to be in a particular section in that section. May not sound like much, but I wanted it to be, if you're familiar with, oh, section 3.3 is how they do their QC review. When you go to section 3.3, you want to find all the points we were checking for. It may be that they're cross-referencing where it could be found that they already mentioned it somewhere else in the document, but there will be a reference in that section. So as you get used to our format, you'll be able to find things quickly and easily. So what were the key points we were checking for? First, foremost, and overall, did they answer the things we asked for in the template? And as we go through these next few slides, I've highlighted in orange points that we frequently had to comment on. We asked them to give us an overview of their quality approach and how their QC manager's role provides independent review. We wanted them to tell us how their personnel are trained in quality, not just in their technical disciplines, but that they train them on these quality plans they have. We checked that project schedules will have time allocated for quality reviews and that they will maintain and update those project schedules as needed. That we wanted them to tell us how personnel will know where to get the latest ODOT guidance, and that we made sure they were not requiring or expecting ODOT to have Blue Beam licenses, because we do not have those for everyone in the agency at this point in time. Regarding QC procedures, we checked that they are stating clearly that preparers and reviewers are technically competent in that discipline, that sub-consultant products and deliverables have been reviewed and verified prior to use in design and prior to submittal to ODOT. We wanted to know how they handle their discipline-specific reviews, how they handle response to reviewer comments, back checks, and come to agreement about changes made. That they check their documents for accuracy and completeness, and making sure that they weren't saying in their quality plan that ODOT is part of their internal quality review. We are not. They need to do their internal quality review. Regarding design deviations and exceptions, that they should be introduced early, strategized with the region, documented, defined, approved, and that tentatively this should all be done by DAP. Reality is that's not always possible, so they should definitely be fully resolved in advance of PSNE submission. Regarding software and tool and data validation, that the input needs to be validated and understood, that inputs and assumptions are documented and output understood, that there will be an independent subject matter expert review prior to submittal, with comprehensive independent review by an SME not working under the direction of the responsible discipline SME, that they check that they followed applicable regulations, design standards, and ODOT manuals, that they do a cross-discipline check of consistency across disciplines. By the way, as we looked through these, the term that most of them used for cross-discipline checks was interdisciplinary review. Design documents provide for constructability and compatibility of materials. They've done that kind of review as well. The content is accurate and complete, and things have been checked and signed appropriately. We also require a certification of deliverables. And after about 20 consultant quality plans, I got very firm about we want to see these 6 points in your section in your quality plan and on the form that you're giving us as an example of the certification form you're going to provide. So yes, that's one thing you can expect. They will be providing a sort of certification of deliverables form that states that the deliverable conforms with contract requirements, that they have checked consistency across disciplines, that they've met all milestone requirements, QA/QC processes were followed, all comments and issues have been resolved, and quality records were developed and provided to ODOT. Regarding agency review comments, we wanted to tell them how they're received, assigned for response, tracked, incorporated, resolved, and closed out no later than prior to the next milestone submittal, and how they plan to use the project comment log as a communication tool. For quality document control, to indicate that they will comply with ODOT's project-wise protocols for document naming and storage, and creating sets in the 7_quality folder for discipline quality documents. There were a couple of things that were unexpected or interesting about what happened in the course of these reviews. One was the amount of attachments. You may have noticed me mentioning earlier that most plans were about 20 pages long for the main sections. We had one that was over 240 pages with attachments. There were a lot of discipline-specific review needs because a lot of those attachments were discipline-specific checklists. We made it clear to the consultants that if our quality plan says that our quality forms are optional, they are free to develop their own, but they always have the option of using ours. If ours are required, they must of course require them, and they must of course use them, and that needs to be clearly stated in the statewide discipline quality plan if they're required forms. We also found that several of the firms, in addition to their consultant quality plan that would be approved for the price agreement, do a project-specific quality plan. Most of the time, what those seem to be covering is who's in the roles for the project and what is the schedule for quality reviews. And remember, those are things that can always be asked regarding any project. If you want to know who is in what roles for this work order contract, that request can be made through the PM to the consultant. And a schedule of quality of reviews for the project as well can be requested. So a lot of stuff there, and I'm running close on my time. I'll keep going and we'll take questions in a couple minutes, but wanted to let you know, you may have noticed a lot of things were very dependent on the consultant quality plan guidance we put in place last February. That's what we judged these plans against. That's what gave a template of what we were looking for. So it is due for its annual review per the maintaining quality standards of practice. And we, of course, expect there will be some updates. And I'm looking for team members. So if you have some ideas about how we can make our guidance better, please contact me. Raise your hand in this meeting would be great. Basically, I think we're going to be considering what we could or should be updating in the guidance to meet formatting guidelines and to clarify our expectations. Another effort that's getting kicked off is regarding the RE narratives, to consider where we store and access those and procedures for using them that are meaningful. The approach is going to be to develop a process map to learn how things work now, identify improvements and plan improvements, act to put improvements in place. And again, I am looking for focus group members, RE representatives. We'd probably like to have a TCM representative or may rotate that position over time. PCO is going to be involved, Karen Scott and Jaime Viramontes, Summer Guthrie from construction, and myself. So quickly, PD 20, wrapping things up, PD 25 is in place. We've done the consultant quality plan reviews and wanted you to know what we were looking for and what you can expect now as contracts go out with those consultant quality plans in place. And we have the consultant quality plan guidance annual review coming up and the RE narratives focus group. Are there any questions? Well, if not, thank you very much. And you can always email me or contact me afterwards. Always happy to talk and answer questions. And Kim, I can hardly believe it. I finished a couple minutes early, so.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you being conscious of your time on the agenda. That being said, I don't want to feel too rushed. This is kind of where I want to be more aware of making sure everybody, I know nobody said anything, but I just want to make sure if anybody's got a question, a comment, anything, any work experience on using this yet or referring to it.
And I guess I would like to say, you know, as things go forward, please let me know what's working well, what could be improved. We're always, as shown, working on continuous improvement. So hearing back from people, we really hope that this is helping our projects have better quality, but hearing back from you folks who are putting things through the project process will really help us make that continuous improvement.
Thank you, Christy.
Christy, just a comment, just to clarify to this team, I think you're introducing a new form, but I don't think we're expecting TPMs to be filling out that form. They want to certify that the consultant has completed all the labor, okay?
The certification of deliverables is provided by the consultant when they give us the deliverables. It isn't a form for us to fill out. And we have created a project-wise naming convention for them to have a place to put. To have to fill out.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks everybody. I just had a moment of panic. My computer froze. I don't know if your guys's did. I saw we have a notice from IS that we've got intermittent connectivity issues. Of course we do on PDQ. Welcome, Melissa. Next up is Melissa Canfield. And then I noticed several, well, not several, but some of her team members have also joined in. I wanted to say this is another opportunity I'm hoping to create where we can just have some discussion. We have to work close with OPO. Welcome, John. And I know there's things that we can do to help make their job easier. They know there's things they could do for us. So let's just have that conversation. And I know we'll all be respectful and all that, but Excuse me. Thank you so much, and I'll try to facilitate the conversation as we move forward. But Melissa, John, I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, I think you're muted, Melissa.
I just wanted to thank everybody for working with us, and as we transition to Oregon Buys, there's a lot of changes going on and how we gather information, how we work together, and I know our team is very interested and wants to support you in any way that we can in getting your procurements done. I understand that the process itself is long and there are a lot of requirements. Those requirements are driven by state statute as well as federal requirements. So I think we actually have a checklist, pretty long checklist, because there are so many requirements we can't possibly remember them all in our heads. And so for auditing reasons and for other financial reasons, we have to keep track of all of that. But I want you to know that the people that work in our office are very supportive of you, and they very much care about delivering the projects and getting the contracts in place as quickly as we possibly can. And I know that my team is here to talk about different things today, but we do want to hear from you on what your challenges are as well. We can certainly talk about our challenges. We did institute the complete request process last year, and we've been tracking how well that's going. And we're doing pretty well. As an agency, you folks are doing a great job at doing a better and getting us the information we need up front. That does help so that we can get moving on your work as quickly as possible. And so I really appreciate that. We've seen a considerable jump. We went from like 35%, and I don't have these percentages exactly right, but like 35%, upwards of 70% that we're getting complete requests in our last measurement pool. So I really appreciate all of your efforts in getting your stuff together so that we can do what we need to do to help you navigate the procurement process and get your contracts in place. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John, and we only have half an hour. So I would just say to my team, let's try to leave room for folks to be able to ask questions. And please do engage us in the conversations. We don't take it personal. We know the process is long. And if we could, believe me, it's not lost on me that what can we do to change our laws? What can we do to change the review requirements? We're always looking at ways we can streamline this process by changing laws, but changing laws takes a long time. So I will turn it over to John to go first, and then please do engage with us.
Hello. So some quick things that we were asked to talk about, and some updates for you. So yes, Melissa, thank you for addressing the backlog, or sorry, the completed request. So yes, we are seeing a significant turn since we have implemented that. And so many thanks to all of you who put in your work up front to help get us some complete requests. Regarding that, backlog for us has been significantly dropping over the last couple of months as well. And so actually from the beginning of December to now, we've moved from 33.3% down to 27.4%. So we attribute that to gaining some new positions through IAJA, and then also just filling some of our vacant positions as well. Other things to be aware of as well, since some of our folks have a very high backlog and very high work ethic. Sometimes they volunteer for things, and sometimes you all request them as well. And they are very good at their jobs. However, we need to distribute the work a bit more evenly as well. And so something to be aware of is, don't be surprised if your favorite PCS does not get assigned to your project. We're trying to level out the workload and provide other training opportunities for our new folks as well. Regarding ACEC and some of our procurement subcommittee updates, we wrapped up the notice of intent to award to notice to proceed process improvement initiative at the end of last year. Essentially, we are substantially complete. What remains left is more joint quarterly training for consultants in ODOT, where ACEC and OPO will be providing training to consultants and as well to ODOT personnel. And that can cover different things, whether or not it be compensation types, invoice training, use of the SSOW, where we rely upon Donnell's group to come in and do that for us. And then just using terms consistently across the board. One of the things that we also had was a common contract drafting checklist, and that's posted on our internet site underneath the statement of work guidance documents on the internet site for consultants and for ODOT to use as well. Those are the main common things that we see across the board on almost every single contract, and it's a pretty long list. I encourage you all to go out and look at that. I'll provide a link in the chat after I'm done speaking here for that. Regarding the intent to award and notice to proceed, we're having updated metrics pulled due to the holidays. We weren't able to nobody was around to get it done. And so we're going to be updating those metrics, and I'll provide those at the next probably liaison meeting or the subcommittee group meeting. I'm not entirely sure when, but in case you're curious, based on the initial work that we did, we were mainly concerned about reducing the time between intent to award and notice to proceed. And so while negotiations did drop, because we implemented the intent to award letter, but we did see a drop in negotiations by 9 days. However, we are still over the time frame for negotiations by 20 days. And so there's still some things to be aware of and work on. We did see the refinement of documents actually go up by 5 days as well. And so we attribute to maybe we're getting lesser quality work, maybe things are being passed over the fence, or maybe we just have not that well defined or scope projects. In any event, we own our part. We realize that maybe there's even a delay on our side as well. But we are seeing the backlog decrease. And so we're hoping that there's going to be a juncture here where things are just significantly speeding up across the board, even with the SSOW tool. That being said, the ACAC subcommittee group will also be finalizing our work plan for the upcoming year here this Thursday. And so more to come on that. And we have an entire work plan that we've worked on for the last several years, and we'll be prioritizing that moving forward. So that is what I got.
So we would like to get some feedback from you folks on how things are going in relation to the things that John talked about.
If anybody has anything, please feel free to raise your hand, or Molly gave an acknowledgement in the chat, so you can use the chat also. Ian?
Yeah, I'll provide just a comment. Just from recent experience, I felt like that I was surprised by how long it took to get review back from DOJ and also from Office of Civil Rights. I felt like the OPO specialist I was working with did a great job. Those timelines took longer than I thought, and I was wondering if that's something that's in the process of improving as well. I know it's a complicated line of this person reviews this and this and this, and trying to get that all back up. I was wondering if there are any thoughts there.
So let me answer your question. So DOJ does, in some cases, take a long time. Some of it has to do with the way we have to set priorities with DOJ, because they have a limited number of attorneys to support ODOT. So that can be sometimes the driver. I know that they're trying to hire some folks over there, and they're having some difficulty hiring some DOJ attorneys. But we did, specifically my office, myself, did work with DOJ in the last couple of years to really demonstrate that they need some more attorneys assigned to support ODOT. So that I know they're trying to hire now, and they did get the position. So we gave them a lot of data to support why they needed more positions to support ODOT. So that's, hopefully they can hire some folks. We continue to pursue exemptions from DOJ wherever we can, to not have to go to legal sufficiency. And right now DOJ is revising their administrative legal sufficiency rules. And we're pushing back on some things that may impact our agency in a more negative way. But I do hope they are going to raise their legal sufficiency threshold to $250,000. So that's going to be a big win for us in some ways, but then they're pulling in some work that they haven't typically done for us. That's how their draft rules look. So it's not lost on us, Ian, that we need to continue to work on where are we doing handoffs to other folks and then waiting, because the wait time is what eats up a lot of time. As far as OCR goes, we are very aware of every transaction that is stuck in OCR right now. And my management team is having conversations with that management team to say, we need to get this stuff out of OCR. OCR has some challenges right now in some positions. They don't have all their positions filled, or there's some folks that are out. And I know they're struggling with workload, but I can tell you that my management team, we're paying attention to these reports every week. We get weekly reports on where things are, where things are in the backlog, where are they stuck? And this management team works with that procurement person to figure out what do we need to do? Who do we need to call? There are times when they'll call the region managers. There are times when they'll call the managers of the project managers to say, hey, this is stuck. It's taking a long time. So we are on it as best we can, encouraging people to get things done. I don't know if the managers want to respond, but I think that summarizes it, but.
Sure. Well, on another note too, DOJ, I mean, there is one person that had a specific personal issue rolled forward, which was very unfortunate, but so there was a delay in a couple assignments there for sure. And our condolences go out to them. But at that particular time, and then there was a few, I think it was about 5 that this person had. The other regarding OCR, Twyla worked very hard in prioritizing some things for them as well. And so the most urgent ones were pushed through pretty much immediately, I think, right, Twyla? And then the other ones were still, I think we were waiting for yesterday or today for approval on those as well. And there was a pretty decent list. So thank you, Twyla.
No, thanks for that. I just felt like commenting since nobody else is going to speak up on anything. So
Well, yeah,
I appreciate your hard work.
Because I want you guys to know that we are paying attention. We are looking at this every week. So we're looking at our people's workload. We're looking at where things are stuck. We're looking at who do we need to communicate with. Things just don't sit here. We're paying attention, and we know pretty much every single transaction in our office and where it is in the process. And we're taking proactive steps to get it moving. What do we need to do to get it moving? We need your cooperation too, to try to improve the negotiations timeframes. That's really what we need from you folks, because that is dragging a lot of and driving a lot of the reasons why we can't get things done within the timelines. We are offering training for you guys. We have some pretty expensive training, but it was tailored to ODOT. If you need support for negotiation skills, we have training. I really want you guys to figure out how we can partner and do a better case. Who else has questions?
I've got more of a comment. Yeah, your team, everybody who I've worked with, have been really great to work with. A lot of coordination, a lot of support. I think just the age-old question of how long should this process take? We've got the timelines that haven't really changed since I've been at ODOT, and so just looking at what is a reasonable amount of timeline that we're as a group collectively comparing ourselves to. I personally think that the timelines are too short. But then again, we're always asking you to go faster. So, it's it's kind of on both sides.
Challenge. People say you're not giving us enough time. And I'm like, so most of the timeline sections of the timeline are legislatively driven. So we have to keep things out for 30 days.
Okay.
We're required to do that. There are everything in those timelines is either legislatively driven or based on our analysis of how long people typically take. But I will tell you, most people say it's very long. At the same time, we also have exactly what you're saying is you're not giving us enough time, because the parts that we have control of is the exact parts that you guys want more time. The other parts are legislatively driven. So I think it's really important for folks to understand that. So then the question is, can we change the law and what does that look like? And so, but changing the law for this state is a very long process, and it can be challenging because you may or may not know that procurement is a lever for our legislators in driving social, political. I mean, as much as we want to think that it's just, we got to get a contract in place and this is interfering, the legislature and the lawmakers in this state, there's a lot of money for procurement. So the laws that they put in place. And that's no excuse, that's just the way it is. But I appreciate the conversation. Please keep talking to us. And if you have ideas, we're open to hear. And we'll let you know, like, yeah, we can do that, but we're gonna have to change the law, or we're gonna have to change the federal requirement.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks again for you and your team.
All right. Twyla, is somebody next, or is Kayla? I know Kayla's here. Kayla, do you want to go next?
Sure, I will go next. I'm going to turn off my incoming video because it is causing some delays, but we'll see here. Good morning, I'm Keila Van Hoos. I'm the ODOT Oregon Buys Project Manager. So I'm just going to go over really quick some highlights of Oregon Buys and some things that we have coming up. And then if you have any questions, I'll have time to answer those. So we are in phase 2. B of Oregon Buys. We implemented phase 2A of requisitions, and we're moving into phase 2B. That functionality is going to include the 3 quote process. So your intermediate procurements that you have authority to do outside of the procurement office. Purchase orders. So Oregon Buys will become our purchase order system. So we won't be using the paper purchase orders anymore. We will be receiving all of our purchase order numbers and submitting purchase orders through Oregon Buys. Spots cards purchases, we'll be having some spots card purchases go through Oregon Buys, and there'll be discussions about what's in and out of scope with that as well. Receiving goods and services will also happen in the system for tracking purposes, and approvals. So approvals for sending purchase orders, expenditure authority, procurement authority, those types of things will be happening through Oregon Buys. A lot of that's happening today in phase 2A, but in a different capacity. The other thing that I want to just quickly touch base is phase 2C. Phase 2C will be our invoicing process. And so this is where all invoicing for procurements that are done in Oregon Buys will go through the system. They'll be entered into Oregon Buys. So when we are fully functional and implemented, you will see all procurements from the requisition phase all the way to the payments that are made on those transactions. So for purchase orders, you'll see the payments. For contracts, you will see potentially intermediate payments that are made, or the invoicing monthly. You'll be able to see all of that right in the system. I saw a question, but I can't see it quite yet, but I'll get to it in just a moment. I'm just going to share my screen really quick here to show our timeline for implementation for the rest of the phases. So we are currently working on process mapping and working with groups. I know a lot of you have probably worked with Jody Owens. She's doing a great job coming out and meeting with folks and talking through and doing your process mapping. So that work is going to continue on really throughout all of ODOT. And then starting in April, we're going to be doing a phased rollout of implementation for phase 2B in the functionality. So we have 6 groups that are going. Jody's working on where folks will fall within those groups right now, but we'll be assigning each area of the agency to a group. We'll be doing just-in-time training within that group. So whatever group you're in, your training will be 2 or 3 weeks right prior to that. We'll have in-person training available. We're going to have virtual training available, and then we'll be looking at some on-demand classes as well. Really focusing on scenarios that are more meaningful for folks for that group. So depending on what it is that you're doing in your area, giving you more training and activities that are going to be really help you through the process with things that you are currently doing today. So again, we're going to be doing that rolling transition, and then everybody will be going live at the same time for phase 2C. Again, we are having the Teams system. So Oregon Buys data will flow back and forth from the Teams system, whether it's vendor data, account coding information, or invoices. So all of that work is happening now. We do have one successful interface complete, which is our vendor interface. So vendors are coming from Oregon Buys over into Teams right now. So that interface is working. And we expect the other two to fall similar soon. So any questions about the template?
I want to talk to Chris's comment. Chris, thank you for the input on the TPMs. Let me just say that we have heard a couple of folks that sent over some, concerns that, oh, you're giving us more work. We have to do all this, and this is what we did before. But actually, we had follow-ups with those folks that came back and said, hey, actually, when I started doing the system, things got out really much faster than I ever expected. So I want to withdraw my concern about having to put all this stuff in Oregon Buys. Part of the reason why there's a lot of input in the front of Oregon Buys is because on the back end, when we fully implement Oregon Buys, we will be paying invoices through the system. We'll be receiving the invoices in the system, and then it'll be paid through the system. And then the firms will be able to see when their payments were actually made, and so will sub-consultants. And so we need a lot of the upfront information so that we can fully implement the full system through phase 3. The second thing is there's been a rumor going around that OPO created this system to make more work for folks. This is a statewide led initiative. ODOT and all state agencies are required to use the system. And there are a lot of benefits with the system. There's a lot more visibility into what's being purchased. There's also a lot more visibility for each of you to see where your work is in the process, minus DOJ right now. But you'll be able to see when things were approved, when they were sent out. You'll be able to see everything in the process as it's moving through. So that's some other needs. I would say that on the goods and trade side, a lot of folks that work with the region folks used to just walk up and say, oh, I need to buy such and such. And, our procurement people help them. We still can do all of that for you, but we have to get into Oregon Buys. We're required to get everything in Oregon Buys. So a lot of the stuff you have to put in from your area, and then it has to go through the internal delegated approval processes that are set up in the agency. And again, so that we can implement the full functionality of Oregon Buys through the invoicing. As far as out-of-state vendors, Chris, I just want to tell you that if you are having vendors that are concerned or are not in the system or need some assistance, we have a person that we've hired to work specifically with vendors on how to navigate Oregon Buys. So I would encourage all of you, if you have vendors out there that you think aren't in Oregon Buys, to let us know so that we can reach out to them and help them get set up in Oregon Buys.
So one thing we're going to be. Oh, go ahead.
Can I just respond real quick? I appreciate your explanation, Melissa. And that's why also my comment that some of it's a learning curve, because I think you're right. Oregon Buys requires a lot more information up front that used to kind of be gathered or gained through the process. And so it kind of happened over time, not necessarily all up front. And I appreciate that. And so I do think some of it is a learning curve that we're putting in more upfront, and the TPMs are entering more of that information, perhaps themselves versus others that maybe entered some of that at some point. With regards to the out-of-state vendors, that's a piece that's kind of hard. Some of our folks, we don't know exactly who those vendors are. Just recently came up because we've been pre-purchasing some signal poles because of long lead time. Well, I know there's Valmont and there's a few other, there's a select group of vendors out there that provide those. But most of them are out of state, and our TPMs don't know necessarily who they are. And so I guess we need to start recognizing as we're doing those things, we need to start reaching out to well, either our construction folks or other folks, you know, in traffic that deal with that know who those vendors are, so we can work together to hopefully make sure that they're in Oregon buys. They'll see the, you know, request for pricing or other things. It's just something to keep in mind as we work through that.
And Chris, we're going to be developing some vendor outreach right now, and we're going to be distributing it to folks so that you'll have resources to send to your vendors to say, hey, here's how you go register in Oregon Buy. So we're developing that right now. We're also going to be doing a large campaign for our vendors to get them registered in the system, because that's how they're going to get paid. I mean, that's how they're going to get work. That's how they're going to get paid. So it's going to be really important that they do get registered, but we will be doing that as a group. We'll also have some vendor support from the ODOT perspective, not the enterprise perspective, where we'll be able to support some of those vendors. So we definitely know that that's an area that we need to focus on to make sure we do get all of the vendors that we need registered in Oregon Buys. Justin, as far as your comment, that's the type of feedback that we'd really like. We can adjust some of these things where there's duplicate information. We know that, you know, we went live with the system and there might be some adjustments that need to be made. And so these are great things that we could say, this is duplicate. How do we have it in one place or another? So absolutely. We know the forms have been maybe a challenge. And so we're looking at ways to do things a little more streamlined. Your feedback is great, because we will take that and then we'll see what we can do to adjust and make things work a little bit more smoother. The one last thing I want to say is we are having a town hall coming up on January 19th at 10 a.m. There's going to be advertisement that comes out this week, but the first part of that town hall is going to be from the procurement and complete request perspective from both personal services and goods and trades team. So the procurement specialists are coming to talk about what the expectation is of what should be attached in Oregon Buys for a complete request. Our Oregon Buys team, we can help you navigate the system. We can help what it looks like to upload, but we're not necessarily the experts in what needs to be attached for your procurement. So we're bringing along some procurement folks to help with that. So it will be really great for folks if they do need a little more support on what should be attached. We can have that there as well. Yes, Mahasti, yes, we do know there's some terminology in Oregon Buys that we can't revise. The one that you are talking about, we know we potentially can revise that, but a lot of the terminology in Oregon Buys is also at the enterprise level. So sometimes it's not as easy as just going in and making changes to maybe the way our fields are named or some of our drop downs, because we have to go through DAS to do that. There are some things that we have control over that are ODOT custom columns, but those ones that are DAS, we have to go to DAS. So that is on our list to ask DAS to add agreements to the ORS 190s, because that's our terminology and that makes sense for us as well. So
I see that there's a comment from me from Danelle to talk about the DOJ and the statement of work task language. So ultimately, right now, DOJ is going through rulemaking modifications to their legal sufficiency rules, and I'm pretty heavily involved in providing feedback on the impacts of the changes that they're making. But what seems to be clear in their revisions is an easier path for agencies to request exemptions from DOJ legal sufficiency review. And so if I don't get everything that I want from them, they should plan on lots of exemption requests from me, just so you all know. And one of them that we need to be looking at long-term is the statement of work task language and how we would be able to request exemptions, because we are using a standard statement of work for the work that we do. It will put us in a better position to request an exemption. They are very hesitant to give exemptions just on here's the terms and conditions we're going to use, and we're going to crack the statement of work, and they don't really know what that is. So the consistency in our using the statement of work language is really important to me right now. So we can work out any bugs while we're going through the ramp up for this, but also to show that we can consistently not modify the statements of work when they go to DOJ. So DOJ is seeing all these right now, and they're seeing the language come over, hopefully pretty consistently. So that should build trust with them so that they know that we're not going to be modifying those statements of work, too much. And that they can they can build trust with us and understand that we're not adding risk to the state because we're using standard terms and conditions and we're using a standard template for our statements of work. That's really where I envision going with this. So again, I also envision that our review process internally will decline as well, because we are going to start recognizing that this is the standard statement of work that's being used, and we don't need to spend as much time reviewing things either. So again, this is all about how to minimize those handoffs in the process and the additional reviews and refinements that we have to do that contribute to extended procurement timelines. So I'm going to make another plug for the standard statement of work. I know, Chris, we worked through some things. I know that group is listening and hearing feedback. I know there's all that's being considered and how we can do this better. But the fundamental reason is to get to a standard statement of work that we can get exemptions for and not have to send things off to DOJ for legal sufficiency. And so we can minimize the refinements, and so that we can build trust with the consultants so that we're not spending so much time negotiating the statement of work. So there are 3 very important things where we see time drags in our process, and this is where it is. Refinement of documents, consultants and project managers spending a lot of time going back and forth on statements of work, and DOJ time to review the statements of work. So if we can get to that standardization consistently, regardless of the tool, we need to get there so that we can move things through the process faster. That we have control over. Did that answer your question, Danelle?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Melissa, and great job.
And I just want to do a quick process check because I know we're over time. So people that are watching the agenda, I'm going to push everything back because I want to make sure Twyla gets time to talk, and that I'm encouraged by this two-way conversation, so I don't want to shut it down. So we'll just relax about the agenda and keep moving on.
Okay. The only thing, I mean, other than just adding in the fact is that I've been following up with OCR, so I know that when you all have concerns, please reach out to your procurement specialist because they're funneling those to John and I am having conversations to make sure that we're helping them prioritize what's most important, because I know there are certain timelines that you need to make with your project. So just know we're working with that. But communication is really important. The other just reminder that I'm just going to want to put out there for Oregon Buys is that when you're putting in your request through Oregon Buys, right now today we have 22 requests that are in the system that have been sent to the delegated authority to sign off on the EA for that, and they're just sitting in the system. So those don't actually get to our office until your delegated authority signs off on them. So if you have projects that have specific timelines, just because you've put them in the system doesn't necessarily mean we're getting those. So if you have some concerns or that you have projects that are on specific timelines, please make sure that you're reaching out to your the delegated authority to just let them know, hey, it's in Oregon Buys. Please go in and sign it so that those can actually get to us and we can get those assigned to a specific procurement specialist to help you with your project. And that's all I have.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Anyone, anything else? There's also some information in the chat, if you haven't noticed, that from Christy Gladhill back to her quality program. So I just wanted to make sure people saw that. Melissa, John, Twyla, Kayla, I so appreciate you coming and being willing to encourage the feedback and show that we're all working together. We all want the same thing in the end, less stress and more projects going through. So I appreciate it so much. And I look forward to seeing you again in the future.
All right, thank you. And do give us your feedback. We're happy to hear it.
Okay, thanks so
All right.
much.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
And with that, then I'm going to go ahead and turn us loose for break. So let's come back in 15 minutes. So I will see everybody at 10:20 or 10:21. Thanks all.
Harry's right. That would be amazing if you played hold music, like elevator music.
Oh, gosh.
Muzak.
Muzak, yes. Oh. I tried to, because I was in a Zoom meeting, and when they went to break, they put a timer up on the screen so you could see when your time was going to run out. So I tried to just find one of those for later, so next time I could do that. And I can't find it. It's because I'm sure it's my experience with computers and where to find that information. But I agree, 80s music would be, we'll have a little Van Halen or a little Def Leppard. Oh, well, HR did it during their last. Oh, that nice. I'll do that. I'm not going to go karaoke style because there's not enough alcohol in the world, and I know I can't drink during work, so I'll just listen. But thank you. Welcome back, all. I am appreciative of the people later on the agenda. Jaime, Carrie, Reem, Josh, and Tana, that they were willing to let us go a little long on our other discussion, and if we need to, we'll go a little long on the others. That's why we have a little extra at the end. With that, I just want to check in with everybody before I turn it over to Jaime and Michelle, I believe. How's everybody doing? Do we need to add any NOAs? Anything anybody wants to say? I am so uncomfortable with the silence, so I don't want to wait. I don't want to cut anybody off. Jaime, welcome. Thank you. Michelle, welcome. I'll turn the show over to you.
Good morning. Yeah, Michelle and I are going to cover a few items. She's going to focus on the pre-letting items and some other guidance that we're working on and some of the things that we're facing right now. But Oscar and PMO and PCO got together, and a couple of things that are working really well that I want to just remind the regions about is our quality assurance reviewers are available to review plan sets in advance of PSNE. So DAP really doesn't give us a lot of content to review to be able to provide the information, unless it's a big project. The big project that we review, we actually, Karen Scott identified some minimum standards that won't be met with regards to standard plans, and it turned out it was a sub-consultant that was doing the work. So we pointed that out, it was corrected, and now for the rest of the project, that particular consultant will be able to provide the plans consistent with what we expect at PSNE. Just makes it a lot easier. So on that point, the other item that's available as a resource for all project delivery teams is the region quality assurance checklist that we have. It's preliminary. It's not a required form, but it has all the information in terms of the items that project delivery teams can start using as early as DAP and the different milestones and phase gates, just to ensure we have everything that we need at PSNE. So one of the QA reviewers, if you can put the link in the chat to the quality assurance delivery checklist, I'd appreciate that. The other thing that is working well right now from the regions as a result of program and STIP and the funding office providing guidance on FHWA's requirements for STIP amendments at PSNE. We're starting to see less STIP amendment requirements, and they're typically complete at PSNE. We've had a couple that got caught in between project delivery timeframes and delivery of PSNE. So we were able to make some accommodations by talking to the regions, David Kim and Mike Kimlinger, that have to sign off on PDO2s. For the most part, if you do have a situation where you might have a STIP amendment that's really close, have a discussion with us really early on. We've had a couple of those discussions with some regions. There's very little room to make that accommodation for a PDO2 on those items. But if it's a project that's going to be politically driven, or it's got some commitments to local communities, and we want to keep it on track, just let us know. The process that we've set up for that is going to be described in project delivery notice PDO4. So we're in the final stages of finalizing that currently. And when that's finalized, you'll see in there that there's an opportunity for the project delivery teams to get a hold of PDS. We get together with the manager. We get together with region, typically the area manager and the project leader, CPM, RECP, and just define and make a decision on whether we're going to accept a PDO2 or not on that. Just had a recent situation where we met under those circumstances and decided that it was not worth the risk or even asking FHWA for a favor in that situation. So we ended up postponing the bid and just moving things around. So just be aware of that. It's catching some people by surprise, but that email from Alice had come out quite some time ago, but we're going to formalize it in PDO4. Questions on those two items before I get into a couple other items that we have?
Questions?
You froze up, Kim.
Kim, are you frozen?
Uh-oh. Am I moving now?
You were, but when
Yeah.
you just started to speak, we heard half of a word. That was it.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I'm trying to encourage the two-way conversation. So I was just wanting to see if anyone had anything. Again, we're here to help each other out. So, oh, Ian, welcome. I'm so glad you're.
Ian is
Sorry.
taking one for
Go
the
ahead.
team today.
Sorry, I missed it. What is PDO4?
PDO4 is the FHWA requirements for STIP amendments to be completed at PSNE.
Gotcha. Thank
And
you.
it just follows the guidance that Alice Bibler sent out on behalf of Program and Funding Service. One other item, just to bring to everybody's attention, we do have a process that we added to the phase gate delivery manual for projects that need to be rebid. We don't see that very often, but in some situations we don't award a project, or we have to, for one reason or another, advertise it, not go through to bid. So we have to establish a new bid date and rebid it. Chapter 8 of the phase gate delivery manual provides a process for that. And the last item that I have is, I appreciate everybody's efforts on estimation. Estimation is a new program now that we've had in place as a requirement since June of last year. We had a pretty robust training program for our estimators, are providing training for internal and consultant estimators and teams. And we have 100% compliance on that. All the estimates coming in are coming in through estimation. That's working out really well. The only item that I'll bring up on estimation is we're making a very concerted effort to eliminate 99.99% of 9Z9 items. And 9Z9 items are items that either contracts or consultants or ODOT project delivery teams don't have an established bid item for. So it might be a specialty type bid item. We're working through a process where our estimators are going to be reaching out to the project delivery teams if we see any 9Z9 items and try to get those clarified and changed into a standard bid item where it's appropriate. Where it's not appropriate, then we'll work through the regions and just provide that 9Z9 item. But there's a process that goes into classification of work that doesn't allow us to properly classify it if it's a large bid item. So we want to stay in front of that. And the other part that helps us is once we have those 9Z9 items that are reconciled consistent with our bid items and standards, it allows us to actually track the pricing on that a lot easier. So that's part of one of the benefits of estimation is that we can provide those tools and then the average bid prices back out within estimation to all the project delivery teams. So thanks for staying on top of that. Efforts on the consultants. I know the RECPs with the consultants and some TPMs are also doing a lot of effort on that with the consultants. So that's all I have on that. If anybody has any questions for me, happy to take them. Otherwise, Michelle can continue. And then at the end, I want to leave some time for some feedback from you all too, back to PCO.
No questions? Okay, I'll just jump in. If somebody has a question, feel free to interrupt me if I'm moving too fast. I did notice that everything I'm here to talk to you about today is about a placeholder bid date. Just a friendly reminder, placeholders are required for your project initiation, or if you're exempt from project initiation and your initial submittal is your DAP, I need a placeholder bid date in place before you send your submittal so that I'm able to accept it, please. That's getting much better. It's just a friendly reminder to there's newer folks out in the region, I know, and there's people changing positions and are doing this for the first time. I put the link to the bid project bid date scheduling and rescheduling matrix in the chat for this meeting. If you have any questions about how to start your process for scheduling your project, that is your go-to document. If you have a local agency project, Justin Burnt took this document and modified it for local agencies. You can reach out to him to get a copy of it so that you have the process to follow to ensure that I can accept your packages. The other item I wanted to give an update. I gave an update probably a year ago about how long it was taking to convert a placeholder bid date, advance it to an official bid date. When we first started with PDII, we were at 271 days on average. By the end of 2021, we reduced that down to 21 days. And for 2022, I had to do a lot of filtering for various reasons, and I'm going to address that next. But once I have filtered out all of the oddball projects, we are now down to an average of 19 days for turnaround from the date the placeholder is requested to the date that I'm able to provide an official bid date because I've received your documentation. So kudos to everybody for that. I think it makes the schedule a lot more real time, a lot more updated. And I'm hoping that part of the reason for that is that we ensured that we had your placeholder bid dates listed on the new Power BI bid schedule so that you could see very clearly that they were still a bid date. The other issue that I want to discuss is a lot of panic I've been hearing since Jeff Flowers sent out the email about delaying taking the draft STIP to OTC. A lot of people have been calling me panicked that they're worried they can't schedule their projects. Please don't panic. I am able, whether the project is approved in the draft STIP or not, I'm still able to provide you a placeholder bid date. It won't be official until the draft STIP is approved, but you will be able to schedule your bid date. So you can go through project initiation, you can go through DAP, whatever phase of the project you're at, you can sit in that placeholder. And what I'm doing, this will also apply to the bucketed projects. They have an extended placeholder period as well because of the late assignment of the construction phase to that project and the requirement to set up a placeholder date for project initiation. So those projects, both in the projects that are sitting in the draft STIP and the projects that are part of the bundling process, they will have extended placeholder dates. they won't fit within the requested 6 weeks turnaround that we've always said. So I will be flagging those to ensure that region doesn't get a negative mark for delay in advancing to a placeholder. The report be reported just a bit separately, but rest assured when you're at project initiation or at any phase that you want to reschedule your project, if it's sitting in the draft STIP or if it's a bucketed project, reach out to me. I will get it set for you. Once everything is set in STIP, we'll advance it to an official bid date. It should not change your project delivery process at all. Is there any questions about that? Oh, and we are working, I just did a draft of the process for bucketed projects. I did a draft of the bid date scheduling and up rescheduling matrix for bucketed projects. It's in review right now. It will be added to the current document as soon as it's been approved by Oscar and by Jaime, and you will have the documentation. Until that's done, if you have any questions about it, I'm always here to give you a hand with it. So reach out. And that's
Michelle,
it.
there's a couple questions.
Hey.
Ken was asking, is there any direction on how regions are going to approach bid date scheduling with the larger number of shelf projects that are coming? Many of these projects will span 2 STIP cycles.
Shelf projects are a little bit of a beast on their own because of the fact that a lot of them span a couple of STIP cycles. What we will do to begin with is record your shelf project as is in the current STIP. When we move to the STIP that the construction phase is actually going to be funded for, then we can begin to record the construction phase, even if it's at a placeholder date. We can set your placeholder for you, and once the construction funding is obligated in STIP, then we can advance it to an official placeholder. That being said, there's no 2 projects that are exactly the same. So if you have a project that you're curious about, reach out to me. We can work through it. I'll help you get it recorded for project initiation DAP and set up for bid based off of what that project is doing. It's just, there's no one answer for that question.
Okay, and then Grant says we can only request a bid placeholder date for projects currently funded for PE. This is only for CN funding, correct?
I don't understand that question. Can you elaborate, Grant?
Yes, you were saying projects that are currently in the draft STIP that were delayed. We can only do that if there's an active PE project. We can only request our bid date if there's an active PE project. So we have a series of projects that are being advanced that are on hold now that we're advancing PE funds. We can't ask for bid dates for those, can we?
No, only for
Okay,
projects that have
perfect.
construction phases. Yeah. No, because PE only, that's considered a shelf project. So we would not give it a bid date.
So all of our, not all, majority of our projects will not have construction funding in the 24-27 STIP.
So then what we would do for project initiation in DAP is record current phases, current approved phases for project initiation.
And then just request a placeholder for the bid date.
If they're shelf projects that have anticipated funding, yes. If they're shelf projects and there's no anticipation that funding will be added to it. For example, there's a lot of shelf projects out there that number, and it's intended to be combined into a different key number already at initiation to be delivered for construction. So that's why I say no 2 projects are ever the same. So in a case like that, when you're doing a project initiation for a package that you know is going to roll into another key number, we're going to record just those phases for that PE phase. There will be CMRs involved to transfer the scope and the budget of the PE phase over onto the new key number, and then we would move forward with the new key number that has the construction funding allocated to it. So, like I said, it depends on what the project intends to do. It depends on what phase the project is at. We have to just work through those one at a time, which is why it's really, really difficult for me to provide any kind of written guidance for this, because everything is so different. It depends on what part of the STIP cycle we're in, what part of a STIP amendment we may be in, whether it's a split from another project, a combine into another project. There's all sorts of different variables for it. It's best just to have a conversation.
Hey, Grant, but I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're talking 24-27 STIP under the bucketing approach. Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, those
Well, if
projects that are
they're
gonna be
no, so
bucketed
I'm
that
sorry.
won't have
I'm
construction
sorry,
funding.
you didn't. Yeah, you didn't mention bucketing. That's very, very important when you're talking to me about your projects. If your project is going to be a bucketed project, I have to know. You have to tell me, because I have to handle it differently. If it's a bucketed project, then we anticipate that there's going to be a construction phase, and I can give you a placeholder for that because we are expecting a construction phase to be added to it. If it's a simple, straightforward shelf project, we're not expecting a construction phase. So we wouldn't move forward with a construction bid date with a placeholder.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Michelle. And I think that clarifies quite a bit. And just for the project delivery teams out there, PCO is working closely with PMO, Oscar and his team. We are meeting weekly as just a standing meeting that we have. But part of that meeting is we are going to provide information within a scheduling matrix that is specific to bucketing projects. We're going to have some shelf projects, a general guidance for shelf projects, so project delivery teams know what to expect. But as Michelle mentioned, in some situations, we're going to have a discussion and figure out what that looks like in terms of the placeholder, the construction phasing for shelf projects, which is very, very distinct from bucketing approach. So we're working on that. We hope to have, in combination with the scheduling and rescheduling matrix that we're updating, PD19 is also going to address some of those concerns in terms of the documentation that's needed for the projects. So we're trying to align that and have a discussion. We'll simply do anything with it so that we will have some guidance that's, generally speaking, should apply to most of the projects.
All right, does anybody have any comments, questions for Michelle?
You all know where I am if you think of something after the meeting, because I'm sure that happens more often than not.
Kim, can I have one more minute or two?
You sure can. You've still got about 5 minutes, so go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Just a couple other items that we are working on. With the regions, Grant actually is helping us on some ER projects and what are the requirements for ER projects that are not that are permanent repairs versus temporary repairs. The temporary repairs are very different in the way that FHWA or for the FHWA requirements. But on the permanent repairs, we're working with Grant, Justin Burnt, and our team, Dan Anderson, Michelle, so we can try to standardize all the requirements that we would have for ER projects. FHWA has identified that for permanent repairs, those projects must go through PCO. So we are going to try to get some information out to the regions on that. And again, that's only for permanent repairs. So we're working through that currently. And along that same topic, PMO and PCO in coordination with OPO, we're working closely with them to define at least a decision matrix and some of the items that region project delivery teams need to be aware of when we're separating out portions of projects that would be procured through OPO. Again, FHWA has had more focus in the last 6 months to make sure that we are meeting all the requirements for FHWA, and then OPO is interested to make sure we meet all the procurement laws as well. So where before we would take and separate a project, or say, I'll just use planting real quick, into state funds and then procure it through OPO. It's not going to be super easy going forward. Jeff Flowers has indicated that any part of a project that wants to be separated has to have program and funding approval first for state funding. So that's the first hurdle. And then FHWA also wants to make sure that we have everything documented correctly to be able to go through FHWA. Because when we go through OPO, there's still FHWA requirements that have to be met if we get the approvals to separate projects that are federally funded. So we're working through that. We have another team is working on that as well, just to make sure we have all the correct information. Our plan is to put together a decision matrix, get it out to project delivery teams so you can make decisions really early in your project development process and decide, and then reach out appropriately so we can figure that out and not have to wait till PSNE to try to make those decisions. The other item that's playing out right now that I'll just bring to your attention from Will Woods and the standards engineer for plans is grayscale on plans. There isn't a standard for grayscale on plans. We had a very general standard that we were following for acceptance of grayscale at PSNE. And we've talked in quite a bit with Will Woods. Will Woods is willing to look at each case individually so they can build up some situations from each different engineering discipline of where grayscale might be appropriate for plans. So what I asked the project delivery teams is just to get with your senior CAD lead that's reviewing the plans, or your engineering discipline lead that's reviewing the plans, to try to get with Will Woods to get approval on any grayscale for plans. And for consultants, they can go directly to Will. We might see some of those grayscales at PSNE, but the direction that we've agreed to with Will is we're not going to not accept a plan that has grayscale, but we don't want to forward that risk of the grayscale all the way to PSNE. So if we can catch that early in the process, that would be great. And then it'll inform at least Will Woods to be able to put together a standard working with this CAD standards committee. So just be aware of that. If we can get some reviews early on in the process, we'd be able to catch that too at PCO, at advanced plans, final plans. Feel free to reach out to us, get us the plan sets, and we're happy to review those. And that'll be one of the items that we check for. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Michelle. Does anybody have any comments or questions? As Michelle said, you guys all know where to find her, and I know she has provided some information today and where you can find things, and Simone has. I know they're welcome for any questions on those projects. Then there's not one that's the same. So, and then thank you, Jaime, for coming and being willing to accept the feedback. We didn't have much feedback today, so I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm going to take it as good. And so if nobody has anything else for PCO, we can move on to the statewide statement of work and practical experience with Carrie Fry.
Morning, everyone. So I'm going to try the on-camera thing. Normally my internet knocks me out. So if I go out, it's not personal. We'll try it some other way. But so what I want to do today is I want to give you a quick overview of a quick update on where the standardized statement of work is, highlight some of the accomplishments we were able to get finished for 2022, let you know what's coming up for 2023, and then we're going to have Reem talk about some real life practical experience that she has gone through using the tool, and then some feedback that she's been getting from consultants and some pros and cons that she has too. So let's just start out with share my screen here real quick. Yes, no, yes. Yes. Okay, here we go. We have the circle. Okay. So let's just start with the ADA review process. So we have completed the ADA review process. Yay! Kudos to everybody who helped with that. It was huge, a huge body of work. We ended up adjusting 22 different discipline areas to accommodate ADA possible work that might be involved in that. A lot of discussions that were really great and improved the standardized statement of work in general, not just from an ADA perspective. Just a quick overview of what that process looked like. We started out with the ADA team, the OPO representatives that were doing those ADA contracts, and then our team, and did a comparison against the template that the ADA group was using in the past against the standardized statement of work tool that we have now. And we identified all of the differences. So we took those differences then to a larger group of people with the subject matter experts for those disciplines, the RECPs that were actually running those ADA curb ramp contracts. And then we adjusted the language as necessary. We identified things that might not apply ever to an ADA curb ramp contract, and we flagged those in the tool so that they won't show up. We also identified special language that ADA might need because they have like special processes based around curb ramps that other people won't necessarily care about in their normal projects. So we flagged those. After we had all those conversations, we sent it off to the ACEC group. So all of the ADA consultants that have price agreements for the ADA curb ramps, we sent it all to them to get their input. And we did actually receive a couple comments back from them, so that's really good. But for the most part, they were like, yeah, okay, whatever. But we asked the question and they can always ask for adjustments later, so that's fine. Then we incorporate all of that stuff into our tool. You'll now see a little checkbox in the tool that says, is this an ADA curb ramp project, yes or no? Just click, if you want to do the ADA curb ramp project, just click yes, and you'll get more of an abbreviated version of the standardized statement of work. You'll only really have 22 disciplines to choose from versus the normal 37, I think what it is that we have. We have captured all of those changes that we did as a result of that body of work, and you can find those in the summary of changes on our SharePoint site, and I added a link to where that page is located. So on the right, there is an example of kind of what that summary of changes may look like. So for instance, project management, we kind of gave you, it is a high level. You can go look at the details in other places if you need to, but it kind of gives you an idea of, we changed this task, we determined it wasn't available or wasn't applicable for ADA, or it is, and we added language, or we moved some things around that we needed to based on conversations that we were having. So it's just a good high level overview, so you can quickly kind of go through and see what it is that changed. So some of the accomplishments that we've had for 2022, one would be that ADA curb ramp contract component in there, but we have successfully reviewed all 37 of the discipline areas at least once. We've resolved and incorporated over 230 change requests. So those are in addition to all of the work sessions that we have that have change requests within them. So this is all of the one-off standalone, hey, you need to change this because we found this wasn't working. So 230 of those we've processed. We've also processed over 60 DOJ requests. So where we're getting those is as the contracts are executed through the procurement office. We're looking at those every month to see, to pull out those contracts that have made it all the way through the process. So you use the tool, you went through OPO and you process it through DOJ, and it's a done contract, and you've used the tool through the whole process. So we are gathering those comments, and we are continually improving and adding changes to our template so that DOJ hopefully will make less of those comments as we move forward towards the exception process. But we're capturing all those comments that they're making so that when we do start having conversations with DOJ, we'll be able to say, these are all the changes that we made, and we noticed that 3 different attorneys made different comments on this one task. Which way do you want us to do it for standardization purposes? So it's helping us build that repertoire that we're going to have with DOJ later. We've improved the tool functionality. We've developed the standardized statement of work BOK that goes along with the tool. So hopefully that it's not perfect, but it's a step in the direction I think we need to go. And hopefully it's helping reduce some of the work that it takes to develop that BOK. We've also created an outline document. So the purpose of that document is when you print off your standardized statement of work, when you're having the conversations with your consultant on which tasks do we want to keep, which tasks aren't applicable for this project, you can use that outline document to help narrow down what it is that you need or don't need before you actually go to what the tool printed out as all your statement of work and then start deleting tasks. We've had a number of people say that because the track changes are locked on, that you can't undo that once it's done. So the outline is kind of something that could help with that, hopefully at least narrow down how many times you have to do and undo kind of a thing. Worst case, if you do need to undo something, you can call the your procurement specialist, and they have the code to unlock the document. So talk with them and work with them and get that all worked out. Some other things that we've done in 2022 are implement the mandatory use PDB, I did that as a typo, PDB02, I believe is what it is. We've also had a number of training outreach sessions to regions 1, 2, 3, and 5. If anybody needs additional follow-up ones or specialized ones, please let us know. We'll get that taken care of. We have created a standardized statement of work SharePoint site that has the list of all the tools. Well, it links to the tool itself. It links to other resources like training, tutorials that you may need, things of that nature, just to help you use the standardized statement of work and any questions that you have. We continuously try to provide communication and outreach. Every month we send out 2 newsletters, one to let people know what disciplines are going to be edited in the upcoming month and go through their annual review cycle, and then one that lets you know what we have accomplished in the previous month and what was reviewed and changed on that. So look at our website for that. It shows that every month Ron posts that. We also, as always, have the summary of changes log, the change request log, so you can see whatever level of detail that you need on the changes that we've made. I go to a plethora of team meetings like this, and you can see the whole list there. I'm sure I miss some, but we try to be as transparent as we can in this whole process because we're not successful unless we're helping you. Quick update on the tool usage. As you can see, we're steadily increasing on how many people are using the tool. We're kind of averaging about 50 a month, which is good. That means people are using it. I'm thinking that's kind of where we're going to stay because we've been there for about 6 months now. So, but that's good. People are using the tool. 2023, we're going to have some more improvements, so you can look forward to those. We are improving our annual review process. What that means is this past year, what we've done is we were sending out emails to the disciplines to say, hey, can you review the task language and the links and all of that and let us know if anything's changed or needs to be updated. We were getting changes and improvements from that, and that's great. But I think we're to the point now where we need to ask a larger audience. So this is where I need help from all of you. We would like a representative from each of the different regions to participate in those annual review sessions. They take place every month, and we take about 3 different disciplines every month, give or take. And we have a work session we're going to talk things through. So they're going to have representatives from the different subject matters, but we're also we want a perspective from the project managers and RECPs and all of you, the users of it that have to deal with it and make sure the contract gets done correctly. We want to have that real world conversation between the two factions to make sure that what we're writing can be used by you, or if we're missing something and we need to know that, or maybe there's a process that's changed that you're not aware of, but it's just to encourage that bigger conversation. So we really, really appreciate volunteers from each of the regions to participate in those if at all possible. Tool functionality improvements. We have a couple. Heather Gaona right now is working on a next level outline selection. We think that that will help some of the issues that all of you have been having. So instead of just selecting project management, you'll go down to that next level to say, if you select project management, which of these subtasks would you need or not need? So it won't print out quite so much for you, and it'll automatically put reserved for those things that you don't need, that you know ahead of time that you don't need. So hopefully that next level will get you a little closer to the document and you'll have less revision time. The task language incorporation improvements are going to include local agency contracts. So we're working with Justin Burnt. Heather Gaona and Justin Burnt are working together to get those inserted into the tool. I'm not sure how long that's going to be because that again is a larger body of work. So it may occur over time as we make our way through the disciplines this year. We're also going to be talking to the CACEI team. I'm going to say this up front, we do not want to backtrack on the exception that has. We want to work with what is it existing to try to get it into our tool so that it can remain in some fashion. So conversations are going on with that, or they're going to start up here sooner rather than later. But stay tuned for that. We're not really sure what that's going to look like, but that is a conversation we're starting. And we're also working with the quality program to improve those quality QA/QC tests that are in all the disciplines. There's been lots of questions about what is the intent of those and why do I have that in there, and people are trying to delete them. We're looking to improve those and have those conversations. So those will occur during our annual review processes with the disciplines. We'll have Christy Gladhill in those meetings with us that we can have a conversation on what that task really should look like. And then, of course, we're going to be starting our exemption request process through DOJ. Just as a quick highlight and a plug for the annual review process volunteers, this is what we have so far represented. So you'll notice we have lots of people in DAP, PS&E, project initiation, project management. I don't necessarily need any more people because that's a really big work session, but we have no one from Region 5. So if there was Region 5 interest in having a voice at a table, this is the time to do it. We would love to have your input. You'll notice on the right, the majority of the volunteers so far are from Region 1 because Reem has done a huge plug to get all the Region 1 people actively involved, which I really, really appreciate. But we'd like to see that same level of incorporation from all the rest of the regions too. So please go to the volunteer form, tell me what it is that you'd be interested in helping us with. Like I said, we probably don't need a whole lot more for those ones that we have a lot of, but there are some that have 0, like survey, pavement, things like that. We really need some input from a project manager perspective. If you have if you need to contact the Statement of Work program for any reason, Ron Kerr is actually the program coordinator for that. So reach out to him. He can help you and get you whatever you need or point you in the right direction. And as always, we have our SharePoint site available that has lots of information to help you through it. So next is Reem. So she's going to talk about her experiences that she has, and I'm going to turn mine off to make sure that we don't turn things off accidentally here.
Sorry. Thank you all for having me today to share with you all my experience using the statewide statement of work. I'll give you the history about when did I use this statement of work. I use it since day one when project delivery make it available to us, and they were looking for volunteering. At that time, I was in the middle of my negotiation with the consultant. I didn't make that decision until I reached out before to the consultant and then also to OPO and get their okay. So they were supportive. We were keen to have something standardized because it shortened the time, it make it easy life for everyone to reduce the effort from OPO, from us, from the consultant, and from DOJ. So we start our mission. I call it mission because we are, facing, we are, the first people who start using it, not knowing what we're gonna face, but we know that we're gonna face challenges. So it was the effort was combined between my effort, consultant PM and ODOT staff specialist. So what I did, I started from region 1 statement of work and transferred it to the statewide. How did we use, is it easy to use the tool? The first time when we use it, really easy. Just click the task that you wanted, and in a second or few minutes, it will populate for you the whole task that you needed. What is the challenges? And remember, this is my first time using it. We don't know what we're going to face. What we did is transfer the information from the region 1 statement work to the statewide. So we have to look in depth, task by task, to delete any duplicate information. But it was not only my effort and the consultant effort. We involve Carrie. Anytime I find duplicate information, immediately I involve her and I tell her, hey, pay attention to this. We find this and this. So constantly she was in the loop because our goal is to have a good improvement on this. We know that it's not perfect now. And at that time, we're still in the development process to have a perfect statement of work. Now, the other challenge that we are facing as well, when we used the statement of work originally, there was no BOC. So what we did is we have to use the current BOC, which associated with the old statement of work. And then we have to edit it and add in and deleting. We have to reach out to the, Kim Rice to get his approval. But after that, they make it available to us, which is great, and that's time consuming as well. The challenge that we still have it today is even the BOC that's available to everyone, it does not link with the task that you created. So you still need to clean it up, edit it, and adding lines. It's a time consuming, but I think the two programs, they cannot talk to each other, and hopefully in the future they will find solution. So next slide, please. Now, my experience, as I mentioned, I have 2 projects was in the middle of negotiation, and 2 of them, one of them is executed already, the other one is with DOJ. My experience from the statement of work using it as early stage, OPO comments were just focused constantly on correcting language that DOJ previously commented on. And then DOJ comments that I received on one of my contract that is already executed was focused on the use of specific terms and their definitions as stated in the task language to be more consistent throughout the statement of work. Timeline for one of my projects that is already executed. We send the request, or OPO send the request to DOJ on November 7th. We received the comments back on November 19th. We address the comments, we send it back to them and resubmit on December 1st. And then the legal sufficiency approval was on December 5th. So really short time. I never had this experience in the past. And we're still in the beginning, my expectation when we have improving, the statement of work, this time will be even less and less. And of course, it depends on the DOJ, availability and other things. And if they got the exemption from DOJ, that will be even better. So that is my hope in the future, and I'm hearing that they're working on that. The pros, as you heard me earlier, is easy to use, straightforward, and it's to streamline, expedite review time from both DOJ and OPO. As you heard me earlier, that the statement of work, it had some effort from my side to address region 1 requirement, and I'm sure region 2, region 3, and 4 and 5, they have their own specific requirement that apply to their project. So I always ask ODOT staff to reach out to Kerry to provide their comments and their requirement to address it, to include it in the statewide. Yes, maybe sometimes does not apply to other region, but they can make it with a different color that is only applied to region 1. So if region 1 consultant came, they will use it. If not, they will ignore it. And that was my goal. And you will see the comments that I received from the consultant about that specific item. The cons that I find it, as I mentioned earlier, it was early in the stage. We find a lot of duplicate in the task, and we try to work on it one by one. And then I involve Kerry in every single aspect that I found it to help her out to improve the statement work to have a perfect one in the future. And then the BOC is not, I mean, you know, as you heard me earlier, that is not linked to the task. Now the experience that I reach out to both consultant and I told them, give me your experience. This is my point of view. Now the experience that I got it from two consultant number 1, they mentioned that it's easy to use. And they mentioned specifically what I mentioned about Region 1 requirement. Region 1 preferred language in our development for the project specific work order contract. Region 1 requested replacement. This is just as an example of the template language for hazmat, for right-of-way. And if region-specific language is needed, it should be provided in the template. So Region 1 consultant can toggle it into the work order contract like how it is done with a special provision or boilerplate. The consultant team replace the statement work template language with the Region 1 requested language and edit it to match the format. This is the item that I mentioned earlier, and I'm hoping that we have that as a statewide, and we reserve a spot for each region requirement, so to avoid overlapping or copy and paste on top of the template, because the template, it's a template, need to be used statewide. Now the other comments that I receive from them, it's the template currently looks deletion, we cannot delete the template, and as you heard from Kerry, and there was a reason behind that. They want to track it. I think this is like a tool to OPO and others to track what was added and what was deleted, what was, to track changes. So nobody will make a mistake to turn off the track on. So there was a reason behind this. And I'm not sure what is, Kerry's opinion on this. Maybe she can talk about it later. And then the BOC, as I mentioned, before the BOC was updated, it's time consuming. We have to take the template from the old one and edit it and get approved, get permission from Chemrise to add a line. But now it's resolved by putting the BOC available to everyone to use. The other consultant feedback came, again, same thing. The statement of work tool provide consistent statement of work language, which will help on the project by project basic. And then again, they look at it as a straightforward and streamlined expedite review time from both OPO and DOJ, because this is how we see it. And then comments from both OPO and DOJ were most related to the template language, and we talked about it earlier. And then it appeared that there should be continuous update to the statement template as reviews take place. The challenge that they share with us is that there were scoping when the tool and statement of work template were in development. So they have some section were completed and some section were not. So what we did, we provided with the language. So we helped the statement of work to add more tasks, to add it to the statement of work. So it's still under development, and they understand that. So what their opinion is, starting with a complete master template, allow user to select the relative task you need on a project basis. And that's our goals as well. We were unsure how to add new task and the numbering system of the task. This is another challenge area, and I think the new statement of work will cover that, because when we get it, it was under development. There is a lot of tasks that was added. It does not have a code number. The code number should be reflected, I think, in the BOC, so it will be going together. So there will so we are still uncertain of how we can, put it, and we reach out to Carrie and she helped us out to add these code to the statement of work. Now their hope is that the statement of work should be similar to the CACEI as a template, which means we should not edit it, and any edit, it will be very minor. So to reduce the work on them, on us, on ODOT staff, and on OPO and DOJ. So that's their hope, which is the same as our hope. And again, you see that comment is similar like the other consultant comment that there are region preferences on statement of work for some tasks, and it is unclear how to incorporate those as they are not included in the master template. Maybe consider in these language like in the special provision. So again, the same comments from both consultants because they're working in region 1. So their hope is to have region 1 requirement language to be in this template rather than overwrite the original template. And then they were happy to have the BOC as a standardized and as available to everyone. So this is it from my side. Any question?
And Kim, do we
Okay.
have just like 2 minutes? Or am I
Yes.
over? Okay.
Well, we're over a little bit, but go ahead. I haven't checked with Tana, but she's a wonderful team member, and so I'm sure she'll go ahead
She
and
gave me the
wait.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to, I'm going to do a plug here for something else that we're working on too that goes hand in hand with the contract administration that you all do. So since the tool is now in maintenance mode and improving, I'm moving on to the A&E contract administration manual, which we've had in place for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So I'm going back to that, and we're doing updates to the chapters to incorporate these tools like the standardized statement of work and the new estimation tool and things like that. We're talking about those in the chapters and updating them, but I do need volunteers for that too, because we do want a contract administrator perspective when we're writing these. The manual is going to be kind of a comprehensive tool that all you can use, and then Tana and I will be working on creating training based upon that so that you can be able to better understand what it is, what contract administration involves, whether you're new or been there forever or whatever. But that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Ian, you have your hand up?
Yes, one quick question. I recently finished up a contract execution with the standard statement work template, and the questions I got back from DOJ, again, kind of like what Reem was talking about, dealt with terms, what do these words mean? And I wanted to share that I looked at the master list of terms, and there are several in there that don't have definitions. And so I was wondering if there is an effort, or at least it's on the list of things to do to fill up that list and provide definitions for the terms in there and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so there is. That's actually part of our annual review process. They're supposed to go through all the task language for that discipline and then verify all the links work to the manuals that you're pointing to or the policies, and to also go through those terms to see if they are defined correctly or if they're missing or things like that. So it is kind of a continuous cleanup effort that we are doing. So one of the things also that has happened, and hopefully it's happening less, is people are forgetting to send that list of terms and definitions and the standard links to OPO when they send over the standardized statement of work task language. So you should be sending 3 things over to the procurement office to process every time you do a request for this kind of stuff, so that they can actually put those in the contract so DOJ won't question that.
Well, they will question if it's blank.
They will question it if it's blank. So hopefully, I'm sorry that we still have blanks. I wasn't totally realizing we still had blanks, but we will get that fixed. Absolutely.
Sure thing. I just want to make sure it's on your radar. So thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Reen, Josh had a question in the chat. What was your experience with task hour negotiations with so many new tasks that we do not have history for? And also, have you got to the invoicing side of the contract yet? And what is your experience with that with so many total tasks?
Great question. And as you heard me, Ariel, it was a challenge from our side. It takes sometimes from my side because it was under development. It was not as good as now. It was really at really early stage. It took a lot of hours from my side and the consultant. And also I went back and checked with the specialist on each task to reduce the duplicate. So the negotiation hours, remember, it was not starting from zero. It was, we have already negotiated and it was with OPO. I pulled it out from OPO and all I did is just transfer the information from my statement of work, region 1, to the statewide, statement of work. So I know the effort, I know the task, and I know the BOC, how much at that time. And what's funny, when even with my comparison task by task, I still missed few deliverable. And how did I notice that? When the BOC came, the new one, that reflect the statement of work, it came higher than the original one. And I said, how come the statement of work, the scope is the same? So I have to go back one item by item. And then I noticed that there is some deliverable that was in the statement of work that it does not apply. So I deleted the hours and I came back with a balance. So it is a lot of work in my side, but as I mentioned, it was not perfect and it's not perfect yet, but we are in the process. I mean, if you help Carrie, she can make it more perfect. So any feedback from your side, it's gonna be readable, and you're talking about the invoice. Again, I started whatever information I have it in my region 1 statement of work, and I apply what is needed. So I might need to delete few things, and I might add information that is needed to the contract that apply to me and the invoices need. I did that. So, we did some modification, but we inform Carrie about these modification and we provide some recommendation for all the tasks that we work on. So I hope I answer your question, Josh.
Reen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your experience using the tool. It's nice to hear some actual, I think you may be the one that's been using it the longest. So it's nice to hear how it's working for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Carrie, did you have anything else?
No, just a reminder, like Reem was saying, we don't know what's broken unless you tell us what's broken and how that you propose to fix it. So just reach out to us. I'm not an expert in any of these areas. All of you are the experts. So I don't know what's broken until you tell me. So just tell me. That's what our change requests process is for, so that we can continue to make this improvement and usable for everybody.
Great, thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Real quick, I want to make reference to, there was a couple comments made in the chat after the previous before the statement of work, sorry, the PCO update. I just wanted to make sure we kind of addressed it really quick. Justin, you had a question about plant establishment, part of construction or standalone. Chris Hunter responded. Did you get your question answered? Are we good, Justin? Maybe. Oh. Thank you. Thanks, Justin. And then I'm trying to go back. Molly wanted to say, Jaime, just to be clear, did you say PCO was rejecting plans with grayscale? And I believe Michelle responded that as long as Will Woods has approved them, they won't be rejected. So I believe that's answered. And I think I've got everything there, but if I've missed any, please bring them up in the NOA because we'll have time to close that loop. And thank you, Tana, for, I'm saving the best to last. Oh, real quick, Tana, can I ask this question for Reem from Chris? Thanks, Tana. Reem, Chris Hunter wanted to know how many tasks do you have that you will be tracking? Have you had any invoices yet? Curious how invoice tracking will work.
I just have my my contract executed, so I don't have invoices yet. So, but my kickoff meeting was yesterday. I can share that in a month with you, and I can tell you the answer. I just have one executed, and the other one is with DOJ. I'm waiting for this to be executed as well to start working on it. But it should be the same because you have the BOC. You are tracking the BOC, I mean, the hours from the consultant. So it's not different than whatever we did in the past. All you need is just review the BOC. It's the same hours that you're expecting. So the invoices should be the same. So I'm not sure what's changed. Nothing has been changed from the invoice standpoint. If you want to change the language in the statement of work, go for it. Make it, working in your site, in your, unit or your region. That's what I would recommend.
Hey, Josh.
Kim, real quick, Reem, my experience was my total number of tasks more than tripled between the statewide standard of work and the previous invoice. And so that's why we're curious about the invoicing side. If you have 3 times as many tasks to track, I went from 160 down to 60 when we failed negotiations, went back to the old template. And we had roughly 60 tasks that had less than 20 hours associated with them. So we ended up with a whole bunch of tasks. And so instead of combining those all together, which not is how the template's kind of set up, so we struggled with that. So I was just curious on how that went during the negotiations when you have that many more line items to negotiate, and then you don't have a history associated with those broken out tasks.
Great question as well. During the negotiation, as I mentioned, I have my BOC, so I know the task in the past. It used to be, combined, and I have the total hour for each one of them. And I work closely with the consultant. I said, okay, you put this hours, like just an example, 50 hours for roadway, just example. And then they distributed in different tasks. So all these hours has been distributed evenly to come up with a total. It's work, it's time. But in the end, I ended by the same hours that was assumed in the past, in the old one, with the same numbers. Remember when I said the BOC came higher? I came back again. I said, why it's higher? The same statement of work, the same scope of work. And I went back to these hours and I reduce it based on our agreement. So it needs some time and you will get used to it, but you need to negotiate with the consultant about the hours per, if they put a big amount, you need to tell them how much hours do you need and negotiate with them on these specific items. So when they invoice us, it will be per that task. What did they do? If they did a design for the ADA, if they did, calculation, whatever, it's more detailed. I didn't combine. I just follow it, but distribute the hours with the help with the consultant based on our agreement in previously on the number of hours on that specific task. That's how I did it. And it worked.
But you had the advantage of having a BOC kind of done in both ways to be able to negotiate. On a new project, you wouldn't have that advantage.
But you can talk to them in general of how many, how many hours do you expect? This is at the first beginning, how many hours do you expect hazmat? Just let them give you some, high level thing. And then how do you distribute it? Then you can dig in the deep, just you have like 100 hours for roadway. How do you distribute it? Did it include plans or only design? Because that was one of the area that was gray. that in the task, we like task 20, we tell them it's only plan development versus roadway. It's calculating, it's designing, so you have to, separate these items from each other to see how much time they spend to put the package, to compile the package. That is the argue between me and the consultant. How many hours did they want only to combine, not to design, combine? So that was kind of go back and forth to understand, because there was a term in the task that it was not clear. So I have to go back to Carrie. I said, you mentioned here, you mentioned there. So we split it now at the, task 20, basically it's just, putting the plan together. And the roadway, for example, is design, putting the calculation. So, we split the hours, something like that. But if I were you, come up with an agreement of the total hours. Let them do the math in there, and then how they distribute it, and share the information with your specialist. So if it is roadway, go to the roadway unit and tell them, hey, if you're designing, this is, of course, this is before you even interfere with the consultant. You have to have a backup plan, and behind you is how many hours do you think roadway will assume that if they do it in-house, how many hours? And based on this information that you have, that you can negotiate with them, say, I think you're high, because when I calculate the whole hours, it turned like 150. Why this 50 came higher than that? So you can negotiate. Then they will tell you were gonna do this and this and this, and you're asking in the new template, you're asking more deliverable. Then you can go in deep and delete these deliverables. That's how I do it. But you need to have that before you start negotiation in your area. You need to go back to your unit specialist and let them, provide you with the hours that what they think if they design it by themselves, because they are specialists, they are the same, right? Yes, the consultant, they will have bigger team, they will have sub, but the hours when design, it should be close. Even if it's a little bit bigger, you will make your own judgment of how to, to come up with an agreement. That's what I do. I have something was done by our units, and then compare it with whatever they came. If I see it high, I will reduce it. And this is through the negotiation. If we didn't come with an agreement, I schedule a meeting. I will go with them. I say, why did you are higher than us? You need to reduce it because this is our expectation. Maybe they think about this task is, you're asking more, and their assumption was wrong, and it's not wrong, was not aligned with our assumption. So we clear it during our negotiation, during the meeting. I will let ODOT facing the consultants to say, what do you do? What do you expect? And they will say, this is what our expectation. And we say, no, we didn't ask you to do this. So it will be more clear. You can reduce it this way. And this is what I did in my project. I faced them, I sat with them, I scheduled a meeting, and we came up with kind of balance or agreement. Let me say it this way. Does that help?
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I believe Molly Carey also had a comment that with additional tasks to track, things are moving. I think we are also realizing additional admin costs at the consultant end. That's probably just a comment for now. Did you complete, Grant? And I want to know, did you complete the internal estimate, or did you have the individual disciplines complete the estimate per task?
Okay. In my case, we did it maybe 3 times, and you will laugh at that, because original, before we have the RFP, we have the high level one when we have the region 1. So I have some estimate about how many hours they should. And then when I put the statement of work, establish it, before the consultant came on board, see the original one. So I asked ODOT to provide me with the hour that on my back pocket before I start negotiation. Then I start the negotiation, and I have in my back pocket all these hours, and we came up with kind of an agreement. Then I transfer the information to the new BOC. So that's why it's a 3 time, because I have to do it again, but in this time I have the hours that we already agreed on based on comparison with the old region 1, the original staff. And then before we got an agreement, region 1 technical unit manager went through the exercise to go over all the task, and they provide the tech center manager with their hours. They provide me with that, but the information came after the fact. Remember, we were, I already finished my negotiation, but this is as a, to start with. And they asked me to renegotiate these tasks. And one of my project, I was successful to, match it. The other one was kind of too late in the game. And they already have their, input originally. So I tried to match with whatever originally we match it. So it's a combined effort. You need, or the right way to do it is you need to have the unit manager, the unit staff specialist input before you start the negotiation. These hours, put it on the side as your tool to negotiate the hours. And when you send the statement of work to the consultant, you know that it's matching the hours that tech center, they gave it to you. And then based on that, you compare it. Sometimes what I do, I send whatever I receive from the consultant, the statement of work and the BOC again to the tech center unit staff to tell them, hey, this is what they gave me. What do you think? Give me your opinion on that. And if they say it's too high and we didn't agree, I set up a meeting again with that specific unit with the consultant and negotiate that. I'll say, this is too high. I mean, why do you put more hours? And sure enough, the consultant, their understanding was different because the statement of work have different language. So we delete it, we revise it, and we edit it to match our expectation. And when we did that, their cost dropped down because their understanding was different. So this is how I mean, it's work process. It's a work effort. And I'm not saying it's perfect. It need an effort for you until it become, perfect to everyone. So that is my experience. I like that, Molly.
ODOT's lucky to have you, Reem.
Yeah.
Grants just got the comment. Thank you. I feel our tech center didn't realize they would be calculating an estimate for each task and subtask for each project. We don't do that for internal projects, so that was an extra step for them. Thank you again for your information, Reem.
Thank you.
And Carrie and everybody who asked their questions, I really appreciate that. Bump. I'm going to turn it over to Tana finally. Welcome, Tana, and it's all for you.
Thank you. I will just take a little bit of time. I want to kind of draw everyone's attention to the fact that we do have notes. I know we have talked over quite a few things. Lots of questions have been answered in the chat. Lots and lots of links have been shared, and we've had several speakers. And so every time, I'm going to share my screen. Every time that we have PDQ, we have notes sent out. Wait for this to pop up. We have notes sent out, and they are sent to the team's team. If you came to the 1 hour, 1 topic or watched it afterwards, you know how to navigate this team's team, and you are exceptional and amazing and wonderful. And if not, you can navigate there and watch it. So here we have the notes from the last PDQ. If you see this here, we have the project development team and then the PDQ channel. And then here's the post for the last notes. You just click on that hyperlink. There were only 37 views on these notes, and there are 88 people in the meeting. So 37 views mean that one person going multiple times means multiple views. So I know not everyone is going to go look at the notes, but yet we're sharing lots of great information here. So it might be beneficial to do that. Another thing I want to make sure that you understand is here, Kim has already shared this once, but I'm going to share it again. Here where it says files, Kim is uploading the files for everything here. So people were mentioning in the chat that they wanted access to the PowerPoints, because all the information is shared there. And some of the PowerPoints we've seen today have a lot of information packed onto them. When you click open these folders, the PowerPoints that have been shared are uploaded to these folders. They are also in the notes. So today's notes are here, and we have in them the speakers, we have the agenda, we have also all of the links that have been shared, and the PowerPoints are linked as well. So when the meeting is over, you will have access to all of this information. So I want to make sure everyone knows how to get to that, where it's located. Those notes will be shared in this post section like they have been doing. Does anyone have questions on how to get to this? Great.
I want to real quick say everything we should, Tana is so good that we should have this out to you within hours, if not minutes after PDQ, except for the recording, because I'll have to send the recording off to be converted and posted on YouTube. But, and then I'll send an update when that happens.
Thank you, Kim. You're so right. All right, so next thing on the list is Course Finder. This has probably come up several different times in places that you have gone to different meetings because you're all very popular and get to go to lots of different stuff. But I'm going to show it to you again. So Course Finder has been put together by the Learning and Development team with HR. So as you navigate to Course Finder, which will also be linked in the notes, you can see the first section lets you select items. You do not have to select something in the first one. And the second section lets you narrow it even further. So as an example, I'm going to select change management because perhaps someone may have said to me, why didn't we have any change management training? I would like that. You go down from there and you can select either to see ODOT options or to see options from outside the agency. If you don't open these, you won't see anything. Sometimes you'll open an ODOT section and it'll be blank because they currently haven't uploaded anything into it. All of this is manual. It doesn't mean that ODOT doesn't offer anything. It just means it hasn't been updated manually. So these are two options that are currently offered at ODOT for change management training. If you click open the other section, these are current options that people have suggested to HR might be associated with change management. Again, this is all manual offered by HR. Does anyone have questions about this course finder and how you might find it useful? There's lots of different things in here, even project management. Wow, that's super cool. Okay, great. The next thing I want to show you, what?
I think it's great.
Thanks, Kim. All right, the next thing I want to show you is how to navigate the dash. I know, I'm excited too. Okay, when you get to the dash, you're going to go over to where it says delivery and operations. If you hover, it then says statewide project delivery. You click there and it's going to take you to this screen. Here you will see guidance and training. If you hover there, there's 1 hour, 1 topic. First, we're going to click guidance and training. This is the new training SharePoint. It has been updated. It's super cool now. It was cool before, but it's super cool now. So if you scroll down, you will see upcoming events for trainings. Mobility is offering a lot, which is super cool. If you click see all, it takes you to the entire training catalog. If you scroll down from here, and there's a little video to teach you how to operate this section, but it is basic, like click the arrows and you can filter and sort. But these are all like workday trainings. Some are in-person trainings that are offered that are specifically geared towards you. And then scrolling all the way down to the bottom, pardon my scroll, you will come to links to partner sites, their training sites. So This site is super cool. If you want to see it changed in any way, let me know. We are working as a group. Salem. If you're in networking, that was really funny. If you're not, come to networking next time. It will be funny. So we are working to put all of our training events together so that they appear in this top bar. What questions do you have?
There is a question.
Great.
Oops, sorry. Oh, I thought I was muted. There is a question from Grant. He says, as we've been told to project charge more and more, are we able to project charge these courses if there is a fee?
Let's figure that out, Grant. If we can figure out a way to do that, we should figure out a way to do that. We'll work together.
There's a way.
That's right. I really love your ingenuity. The next thing we're going to look at is 1 hour, one topic. This is the SharePoint page for 1 hour, one topic. Every time we have a new one, we upload all of the details to this main page. Each new one that we have has its own page as well, which are added in here. Even the 1 hour, one topics from when Diane was here are in this playlist of 1 hour, one topics at the top. We have a whole lineup. I think there's 9 topics that we have already for 1 hour, one topic coming up this year. I am still looking for project managers who would like to step forward and be able to speak in front of all of the rest of you because you're all amazing and wonderful. I am ready for you to come join me as experts. And that is what I have, Kim.
Thanks, Tana. Does anybody have any questions, comments? There's a good comment, or a couple good or a good comment and then some reactions. Donnell then has a question. What does, thank you, Donnell. I've been wanting to ask, what's 27 for behind you?
Okay, so I'm gonna let you in on my secret. This is my conversation starter. So it worked. So hit me up when my dot is green or even when it's not, and I'll tell you about it.
So there is a meeting, or I mean, there is a meaning. We just need to contact you.
You got it.
Anything else? Thank you, Tana, so much. We think your inbox is going to be inundated. We want to know what 27 means. Okay, with that, we are, there's some good answers in there. Sorry, I got just sidetracked. We are 12 minutes before the scheduled ending of our meeting. So the 45 minutes I had for networking has been greatly reduced, but my personal opinion is I felt like the ongoing conversation during the meeting was much more beneficial to have it happen real time. But that being said, that's me, and I'm just running the meeting. The meeting's not meant for me. I want it to be for you. So I'm going to ask, are there any NOAs or any comments or anything anybody wants to share before I look at some agenda items for next PDQ? I just ask that if you get a minute, whether it's in the chat or you want to send me an email or send Oscar or Tana, someone from PMO an email, just let us know how the meeting went for you. Oh, Emerald, do you have your?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. My first is, I just like that it doesn't feel rushed at the end. This is great. I think it's nice to hold it for networking and feedback, just so we don't feel rushed like we usually are. And then the second is I really liked hearing from Reem going through something new, and the scope of work, like I could even see us having someone else who's gone through it next time, because it's so new and many of us haven't got through it, and change is hard, and we've just heard a lot of rumor mill things about it. I think eventually great for a 1 hour, one topic, but it's such a big new thing that I think it fits well here at PDQ. I guess that plays into the poll question at the beginning too. What would you like to hear more of? And I like this lessons learned portion of it. I really think that's what Reem was sharing with us, was lessons learned. So I'd like to see more lessons learned style items here. Great job, everyone, putting it together today.
Thanks, Emerald. Real quick, Holly, do you have any updates for alternative contracting? Does anybody have any questions around alternative contracting that we have Holly here? I think they're almost ready for lunch. Holly, we may just add you as a possible agenda item next quarter, since we really haven't heard any. We haven't had alternative deliver come for a few months, alternative delivery. So Justin.
I know for the next PDQ, it would be wonderful if Holly could give us an update in regards to IDIQ and where its current progress is at, along with Jaime with PCO.
I think she was already planning that, so woohoo! Thanks. Oh, there you go. Region 5 hasn't quite used the alternative contracting yet. You know, there's always a first time for everything, so we never know what may happen. Hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
I want to be where your picture is behind you.
Me too. I'd like to just jump back into that.
Okay, then if we don't have any more questions or NOAs, I'm going to share my screen. I've been trying not to, since we are having network issues. Okay, maybe. So at the end of the agenda, I've got some stuff held over from this meeting, when we planned for this meeting. We're gonna kind of do a lessons learned with constructability reviews with Zach and Christine. And then Heather wants to come and give us some update information about contract closeout. Brian Sullivan, we're going to ask him to come give us an update on the pavement design timeline. He's been meeting with the regions and kind of discussing timelines of when to involve the payment section. I believe we're finally going to have a report for the PDII internal audit. Oscar says we're going to, and so yes. I'm going to leave it there. And then the public engagement, we were going to bring up in April, and if there's been any railroad resolutions with public engagement. I also have a note here from today that we may invite Bobby from Strategic Communications to talk about that. And the other topics, Travis, we just had it out there at one time. So I would ask if you think it'd be beneficial to have Travis or an economist come talk about budget, revenues, and expenditures. It's always not only boring, but depressing sometimes. So and then we talked about having a conversation around managing milestone tools, things you've just developed for yourself, what's been working, workflows mapped out, like when does X need XXX from the TPM or RECP. Kind of like there's a railroad workflow being put together. Then today we talked about having roadway come and talk more about mobility issues and stuff like that. And then also having Taponker or someone from, what is it? It used to be OCR, now it's combined, I'm sorry. Office of Equity and Civil Rights, OECR, come and discuss about goals. It's been, my understanding, you guys talked about networking, that it's been a little bit difficult to get the goals. And then what do we do? What do we do if you can't meet them? I'm reading the chat, sorry. All right, there's questions about charging our time using project EAs if it's available. That we could have someone come and talk even at TPMPG next month to give us the rules, because we want a project charge whenever we can, but we don't want to charge something to a project that we're not allowed to or we're not supposed to. Molly has a suggestion. Please have Brian ask him to speak about coordination between pavements and bridge for design and coring. So thanks, Molly. I will be sure to do that. And in closing, I would just ask that you would answer the poll real quick in the chat. And have been looking at advanced purchase of signal poles and have been asked to seek a DBE goal for purchasing these poles. Anyone else running into this? Good question. We still, anybody, Chris has made a comment in the chat about advanced purchase of signal poles. Anybody